My name's Chris. I'm your host of the Inspire stage for this morning. So we're now going to change up the trajectory on our stage here through a data-driven presentation. And we've got Sven from the Fosway Group, and he's going to be talking about the realities of AI and what recruiters must do with it, and especially around the hot topic at the moment, agentic AI. Please give a round of applause for Sven as he enters the stage.
Right. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So another half an hour of my bad German accent for all of you. So I'm still thinking in German, so I hope I'll get through this quite nicely. But forgive me already in advance if I mess up a few kind of words. Obviously, this one is for you, and this is also a presentation almost by you. Who of you has already taken the survey that RecFest sent out that I'm going to be presenting, the survey results, the interim results of? By a show of hands, that is probably no one, okay? So then, of course, there's a little bit of a task for you on the slide that has the QR code on it. Maybe take a photo of that, and then as you're on your, if it's not as hot, if you've come home, in your living room, obviously do take the survey, and we will present back those results a little bit later. So my name is Sven. I'm the lead analyst for talent acquisition at Fosway Group. Fosway Group is Europe's #1 HR industry analyst. We focus on HR, next generation kind of things in talent acquisition, learning, a boutique analyst firm, and we provide obviously analyst services to companies across EMEA and internationally, and provide independent vendor research and EMEA market commentary, and obviously some public research, as you will see today, which is basically, here's the QR code. Everybody's phone now needs to come out of their pockets, please. And if you can, where is it? Over there, there's the QR code. We currently have already a couple of hundreds of respondents to it, 70% from EMEA, 70% from organizations larger than 1,000 employees. And we will obviously share the final results back with the community, have some presentations at the RL 100s about it, and obviously give you a sneak preview of some of the findings already today. We did a similar one last year, so it's kind of becoming an annual kind of thing, so maybe those of you that were here last year might have seen that already. Agenda-wise, we're going to be covering, obviously, like, what is happening in the world of TA. Hung already covered it in his opening keynote very, very nicely with a lot of the things that are going on currently. We'll underpin it with a bit more data. We'll also dive much deeper probably in the actual vendor landscape, what is happening in talent acquisition technology, what are the vendors doing, what are the corporates doing, what are you doing on average or on mass. So I think that is probably what leads us through the day. We'll have some time for questions at the end. So there is a bit of a needle in a haystack problem. You find now that there are more golden needles, or at least golden plated needles, as the candidates have also now the tools of generative AI at their fingertips. But the haystack is also getting bigger, right? So you have more candidates to sift through, and there is increased pressure on recruitment teams to prove value to the organization. The economic circumstances are really pushing us all to kind of show numbers, show value, show contribution, and that's really important. In what areas are companies focusing on in terms of their strategy? Obviously, quality and candidate experience are really not up for any debate. 80% still focus on quality of hire as their #1 priority. That is even higher than last year. Interestingly, speed has come back onto the table, which was really low last year. It's risen about like 20% up in ranks. It's still, a bit further down in the ranking, but it's obviously one of the ones that has increased the most. And D&I has declined the most. Just read the news today. T-Mobile, USA, just cut their DE&I program completely in the United States. Other companies are doing that, but in Europe as well, this is sharply on a decline. So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind. Message, basically, you kind of need to look at your entire recruitment funnel and keep these things in balance, quality, speed, those kind of things, candidate experience, you all need to manage at the same time, and basically rework how that new AI-infused way of working in talent acquisition probably looks like, and we're going to be covering that. Most of you have to do that possibly with less money than you had last year. Budgets are under pressure, spend is under pressure and decreasing for about 46% of organizations. That's almost half of companies. 23% are even increasing it, so there's probably some good news for others in the audience as well. But what we're really seeing is obviously because of so many candidates coming in for free, there's a lot of budget that doesn't need to be spent on agencies or obviously on job ads anymore, and that is definitely very well reflected also in the numbers, if that makes sense. In terms of what are companies doing, if we looked at interact and engage stage, then certainly what organizations are going to be using more is internal mobility. Obviously, making more of the talent. If you're not hiring as much, you probably want to retain the people you have. So recruitment teams are pulled more into that. Recruiting teams are also at the same time pulled more into strategic workforce planning, like what future skills do we need? Where do we get them from? Is that internal? Is that external? So those kind of conversations all are going on. And we are seeing evidence of that in obviously what organizations are going to focus more on in the coming year. Candidate experience, career side, candidate relationship management. So more owning the pipeline yourself, if that makes sense. Obviously, in those economic circumstances and with all these applications, so that makes sense. And we already spoke a little bit about that we're using less of agencies and job ads and so on. So I think that definitely it's also confirmed by the numbers on the slide before. When we look at attract and engage, there's a really interesting one in the select and hire stage. Last year also, interview guidelines were already on the number one things that organizations would focus more on. Again, this year, 50%, 51% that focus more on structured interview guidelines. Obviously, educating the managers. If you're sifting for quality, you obviously also need to educate the managers. But what has really stunned me that also the assessment part of the story, the skills assessment and the behavioral assessment, is now actually visible in the top three. So basically, companies are saying, I can't trust all these wonderful golden-plated CVs anymore that Gen AI has created for all the candidates, but I want some hard assessments, some psychologically validated kind of tools that help me to, reduce some of the burden, and I want to infuse that probably at the earlier parts of the recruitment funnel into my process, right? So this is what these numbers basically tell us, and I think I see a lot of people nodding, so I think that makes sense. In terms of onboarding, obviously the handover into then, the employee life cycle, which is always kind of like a bit of a handover point. Still, the administrative stuff is really important, but also like these personal relationship building kind of things. Many people are still working half at home or like 2 days, 3 days kind of arrangements. And so obviously a bit of a buddying and mentoring program obviously is really important on that phase too, and organizations are prioritizing that as well. So yeah, I guess those are, pretty obvious kind of things to do, and you have your chance obviously to vote up some of the things you are doing when you take the survey, so please do take the survey as well. In terms of AI and how it's impacting talent acquisition teams, last year I stood here and said you kind of need to think about what you want to do, like dream big, think about like what, just dream really, really wild and big, and think about what your ideal processes would look like for specific target audiences. This year, it's probably very much you need to act, you kind of need to implement. 9 out of 10 TA leaders say, yes, it's going to have a moderate or greater impact on us in the next coming 12 months. 41% even say quite a lot, so about 70% together with a great deal. So I think that's definitely shifting towards the right, and it's also something that is happening across all areas of HR. So definitely 2025 should be the year where you look at what should you be doing, what can you implement, and get benefits for your own organization. I mean, obviously there's a lot of hype. We've just already heard the question, what is going to happen to all our jobs? Are the bots going to take our jobs and everything? So I think for one, there's a realization that the AI hype is actually, AI is actually a real thing. So last year there were a few like, oh, I don't know, should I invest now already? Is it a bit premature? Is it a bit early? Now the hype, so there's more believers now than last year for sure. And last year also we had the same statistics about how AI affected internal TA headcounts. And last year there was about an impact of 10% where organizations said that our headcount decreased. This year it's a bit more mixed, so there's also organizations who are actually increasing headcount or have increased headcount by now. So the picture is a bit more mixed. And when we asked, which is not on the slide, but a question we are also asking is like, what do you expect in the future? Then last year 30% of you said, yeah, there will be an impact on headcount. This year it's only currently standing at 25%, so it's also dropping a little bit. So what does that mean? Obviously, AI is getting infused, and there are tasks that are being shifted to maybe more strategic work, less administrative stuff, which some of the AI things are taking over. And that is definitely also what, when you think about building a business case, is what a lot of organizations obviously have started to do. But this was a bit concerning. So around AI adoption, what is driving that for organizations? I had a similar slide up last year. Now, this year, there's now 85% that go after raw efficiency, right? So the top left corner is really the very dark green blurb in that. So if it's red, then not many people voted on that cell, if you like. If it's very green, then a lot voted on it. And what you see is that only the top three right corner things in the corner, the efficiency, the cost, and the scalability seem to be in the focus. And that's not going to work, right? You have to make a case with your CFO that this is an extension of your capacity, otherwise you're cutting in your own flesh, right? So make it count that you have at least one of those additional metrics or KPIs in your business case, whether that's whatever, quality of hire or candidate experience or speed of hire, and reimagine how you do the work. For example, anybody do intake meetings with their managers by a show of hands? Yeah, quite a few, right? Okay, cool. So that's already good practice. But AI, imagine you have an AI note taker that, listens in on the conversation between you and the hiring manager, does take the note for you. You can then easily on the screen, while you're working together in that intake meeting, prioritize the skills that you want to hire for, that you want to prioritize, that you want to put a key focus on, that are really important for the hiring manager. And then at the same time, once you're done with the intake meeting, you get basically all the interview questions prepared for you from the AI. You can then basically review them right on the next day, on that same day, on that same meeting, if you like, and then you're ready to go. But how much time to hire does that cut out of your workflow? How long do you take after the intake meeting before you have everything ready to go, the interview questions prepared, and all of these kind of shenanigans? That takes days, 3, 4, 5 days, right? And basically now you're shrinking that process together by infusing AI intelligently into that step of the process. So I think that's a really important thing. And the business case that you put forward should kind of also have those kind of elements baked into it, and not just focus on, we're going to cut out so many hours of our team, right? That, I think, would be the wrong message, because you need the people also to operate the AI, to implement it, and those kind of things, right? So it's not going to go away. So let's look at what the vendors are doing. Obviously, as analysts, I'm getting briefed by all the folks that are here and more. And we put out this, what we call the Fosway 9 grade, which came out in June. Very fresh, the most recent kind of publication. This is only the tip of the iceberg. There's a longer report, 20 or so pages, that talks about the trends, the market trends and the solution trends, so I recommend you read that as well. And some of them are really around, AI, obviously. A lot of the innovation is now almost entirely AI-driven. Right? Where in the past people were focusing on, electronic contract signature and these kind of things and backfilling some of the functionality. The vendors have really focused on AI innovation very, very much. So our functional model, which defines basically the potential on the grid very much, has already for multiple years lots of facets of AI embedded in it. So any form, whether that is rule-based AIs like recommendations engine, machine learning, generative AI, and also agentic AI is already in there, right? So think of it like this. The people at the top of a zone are usually the ones that are more strongly innovating in AI, and the ones at the lower end of the zone are typically, not always, but typically the ones that are maybe not innovating as much. This is a very high-level view. So we kind of thought, that's really not good. We are getting so many questions about what should we be doing from corporate buyers and so on. So we kind of said we need to dive a little bit deeper. And in parallel to the 9-grid cycle, we also this year basically looked at adding like close to 100 AI-only capabilities and asked the vendors, are you doing it already? Is it live with your customers? Or is it on your roadmap, right? So we wanted to remove a little bit of the uncertainty and the volatility about the future and kind of understand what is happening in the market around AI. And as you can see on the Sankey diagram, only 27% of the functionalities were already delivered with customers, right? So there's still a lot of things, 41%, that the vendors hadn't even planned from the model. We obviously took like everything that we saw like everywhere and put it into the functional model, so we would have the widest scope possible, if that makes sense, right? And so since this was done, this analysis was done in, basically submission was in Q1, end of Q1, basically there's another 10% that if vendors have delivered what they told us they would deliver, another 10% would be live. In the TA function, this is much, much higher than in learning or in HR, right? So you are the first, basically, to be able to make experience, to gain experience, and to then also possibly translate that into other areas within HR. So I think that's a really big opportunity for talent acquisition as a function as a whole, because that stuff is available now, right? 27, maybe 37% is possibly at your vendor's fingertips as well. We then basically classified the vendors and said, okay, who's able to walk, right? Who has stuff out with their customers, and who is still talking a lot about AI features. So on the x-axis, that's where we walk, and on the y-axis, that's where all the talking is happening, right? So this is where the salespeople tell you, oh yeah, we have this great AI roadmap and great AI strategy. So the people on the right-hand side, top right corner, are the ones that have the most AI live with their customers. We haven't really asked, obviously we have asked, but this image doesn't show it, like how good is it, how far is it rolled out within the organizations and so on, so that's another layer of analysis. But for this purpose, those in the top right-hand corner are the ones that are live with the most features and also still have a very strong roadmap on their AI features against our functional model. And then there's maybe another interesting group, which is like the people in the box next to that, so middle top. Those are the ones that have a good amount live, but also still have a strong vision about clear vision about what they want to do in the future. And then there's a lot of the folks on the left probably have not much AI functionality live, and also maybe have either a very strong, how do I say this politely, a strong view about their future roadmaps without very little evidence of having delivered something in the past, or have maybe not even an ambitious roadmap, right? So the question is, where is your vendor on that, right? And that is something obviously we are not disclosing here. We do need to make some money, so that is something that we will disclose obviously privately to corporates, to members of our corporate network. But I think it's interesting to see the distribution on this chart. That's why I included it, so that you know that a lot of the TA technology providers actually have not so much live yet, but a lot have obviously stuff on the roadmap that is coming. And because we had so many criteria, like the 100 or whatever, we kind of thought we needed to cluster them as well a little bit more. and basically said, okay, what are the things that are live with a lot of organizations, and where's also the general consensus? What are basically the standard features, the table stake features that you should expect today? So if you are in procurement negotiations with the vendor and the vendor tells you this particular feature costs this much, you would say, not really, this is a commodity by now, you shouldn't be charging me for that, right? So these are the table stakes features, and think of it like CD parsing, which is around for like years. Obviously AI is doing some good stuff to it. There's also explainable AI recommendations would also fall into that category, and a few others that are in there. And then what are the things that are the things that fast follow on that? So this would be like job matching, candidate to job matching, those kind of things that many ATSs or specialists have already obviously embedded in their solutions. And then there's obviously another set of criteria or functionality where you basically say, okay, these are the things that can provide me an edge advantage. They're not with the majority of organizations yet. There's a lot of consensus still for them, so they are likely going to become, in maybe 2 or 3 years, they become more standard. But today, when you use them today, you actually can make a difference. And these are, for example, where the chatbots, the co-pilots are in that category, or the agentic AI, an AI sourcer agent or a candidate communications agent that does things on behalf of you, either more automated or more human-in-the-loop style, would be included in those kind of categories. Again, the research, we will publish this in July, so you can see it on the website later and download it. And basically there you will find the complete list of all features within each category, right? So you can check that out. But I think that is really quite important to understand where is your vendor on that, and because obviously you kind of need to make decisions about the future, like do you need to switch, do you want to switch? How confident is the vendor that they're going to be delivering this in the 12 months that they have told us, right? So these are basically some of the things you can and should be doing now, is to verify these kind of things with the providers that you work with today. And what are organizations doing? What should you do? Obviously, a lot are struggling with budget. So making the case for AI is not easy. It's typically the chief information officer, the CIO, that is making the case, and is taking possibly some of this nice budget stuff away from you and saying, oh, we can do it all with our internal co-pilot and agentic kind of strategy. And many companies have started to build some stuff, but this will become a little bit fatal, as we will later see. But there's also still a lot of concerns around bias. Does it introduce new bias? How do I verify this? The EU AI Act is obviously coming out, or has come out, and is becoming into effect in 2026. And there's obviously also a lot of GDPR and data security concerns that are blockers, as well as obviously like understanding and things like this and compliance questions, which are the challenges. So basically, we looked at all the vendors and we asked them, are you today externally auditing whether your AI is unbiased and fair, or not introducing additional bias, for example? And you can see that only 48% of the vendors are currently independently verified. So think of this as boarding a plane without having somebody has done a security check beforehand, right? So you wouldn't board that plane, would you? The EU AI Act doesn't mandate that. It's not mandatory. But certainly as a buyer, I would expect this, and the industry is also moving towards ISO certifications, which helped a lot with the GDPR stuff to make that easier. So there's an ISO norm that basically some vendors have started to adopt, but definitely check out whether your vendors have done some external validation of that, and if not, obviously you should ask them to. If we look at a little bit the more advanced kind of AI capabilities, then obviously co-pilot is a big thing. Everybody heard of co-pilots. Microsoft has coined the name, but they are still in the hangar, right? They are not flying any planes. 73% have not used an AI-driven co-pilot yet in TA. But those that have actually have found some significant benefits with it, whether that's efficiency, whether that's decision support, whether that's obviously taking off some of the admin work from them. So I think that is definitely a positive kind of statement, but these things are not yet all perfect, right? They help with some things, but not with everything, right? So you have to be experimenting, and the earlier you enter, the earlier you make experiences with it, the better it will learn and improve in the future as well, if that makes sense. And then agentic AI. Obviously, we also asked the question, does everybody understand what the value of agentic AI is? So this is basically saying, AI, you do some tasks for me, right? I don't care how you do it, but let you do it. So whether that's maybe a pre-screening interview with an AI engineer that basically the AI is doing a phone interview with, that will be one example, or an interview scheduling agent that will kind of find a common date when you could both meet, or with a couple of people in the hiring panel meet for the interview. And these are still mostly in early adopter limbo. Many companies are basically just piloting things in a very, very narrow field. There's not general adoption yet. Full wide rollout has not yet happened. So these are the things that are still the early advantage kind of features. They have just recently been introduced. But obviously you can see that some have already started to implement and piloting those kind of things as well. And you can also see, obviously, in what kind of areas. So I think that's quite interesting to also see where you might want to invest. What's really critical, those of you where the IT department has maybe started with a prototype or building something internally, those things will not survive. The EU AI Act does force you internally to make documentations, and there, if you're not a recruitment business, where the whole purpose is recruitment, your CIO won't be able to support it. Excuse me, my voice. So basically, look for vendors who do the work behind the scenes that is required on those agents for you as we move into 2026. To close and maybe to summarize, it's no longer a question of if, but it's a question of what, when, and how much of AI you should be introducing. Table stakes, don't pay extra. That's something that you should be demanding. For the fast follower features, budget now, get your business cases ready, get everything prepared. That is coming to your solution very, very quickly. And the edge AI stuff, I would only touch if you have a very clear understanding of where that impact is. Could be obviously quality of hire, could be acceleration of the process, speed and so on. But definitely go in only with a very, very clear understanding of where you want to focus. And my voice is killing me, so I will stop now and obviously take some questions if that makes sense. Sorry.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sven. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes to pick the brain of Sven. If you've got any questions, please raise your hand and I will get you a mic over to you. Okay, we've got one just down here, Aaron.
Sorry, some water was helpful.
No worries.
Thank you for all that data. That was great.
Right.
My question, Yep.
Please.
The question I have is on agentic AI, and it's early adoptions now, but it's making a big impact in software engineering. It's going to empower us to build a lot of the tools. How do you see agentic AI's role evolving over the next 12 months in recruiting, specifically with the tools that we use and the things that we're going to be able to build as individuals?
Yeah, so agentic AI is definitely there. Vendors have stuff out there for customers to buy, to use. It's probably more weighted towards the earlier parts of the recruitment funnel, where they have invested the most, on average, as a whole in the market. Some products are now out that deliver you pre-vetted candidates from LinkedIn, for example. Like Wonk is one of those who has a new product out. So, and that is using agentic AI in the background to do that kind of stuff. It's basically coming to the solutions that you use this year or next year. Most vendors are working on that, all the suite vendors, most of the suite vendors. It's definitely going to take a lot of workload off your shoulders, but I don't think it's going to replace. So think of it as basically taking up some of the administrative tasks, and then you can have other work that looks at strategically maybe what are the skills we need in the future, how can we improve the intake meetings with infusing some talent intelligence into those, and those kind of things. So I think you can improve as a function, you can improve the maturity of what you're doing by infusing AI agents in certain steps of the process. AI is classified as high risk in the EU AI Act, so obviously there's a lot of regulation now in place that would prohibit in Europe a lot of automated decision making anyway. So I don't think there's still going to be a human at the end who takes the decision.
Excellent. Any more questions? We've got room for one more.
Hi, Sven. A quick question about AI in general. What percentage of the so-called AI solutions that you've seen?
The what?
What percentage of the AI solutions that you've seen do you think are genuinely AI? Or are they just automation, algorithmic based? And does that mean that we don't need to be quite so worried because they are effectively not so much AI as alternative digital solutions?
If you look at this slide, the top right corner completely is built on AI. The middle zone top has a lot of AI live in lots of areas. The left side is where they are still on very basic scenarios. But it's very easy to adopt AI, Gen AI, for example, for job description writing. This turned everybody who wasn't really investing in AI because they didn't have the knowledge into an AI kind of company, and it was very easy for the marketing department to put out some hype, right? And that is what now every vendor is talking about, AI, blah, blah, blah. So it's really difficult to cut through the hype. But this chart basically gives you some really good details about where to look, if that makes sense. How do you get hold of a copy of that? That is not yet published. It will be published this month on the website of Fosway. So if you're interested, message me on LinkedIn. We'll send it to you. Yeah? Cool.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sven. Please put your hands together for Sven, and if you aren't, please sign up to Fosway. They have knowledge of information. Thank you, Sven.